It's Wednesday, January 12. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. $25.8 billion has been added to the recurrent budget for this fiscal year, which ends in less than 2 months. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark tabled a second supplementary estimate on Tuesday, outlining plans to spend $893 billion for the fiscal year ending March 2022, up from $867.2 billion.
Much has transpired within the realm of government in Jamaica. At the point of the first supplementary estimates, for example, there were no final settlements with any of the public sector bargaining groups. And as such, the government's offer for increases in wages and salaries that was captured under the contingencies activities of the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. Since then, 31 bargaining groups have settled. And this is the primary reason for the second supplementary estimates during this fiscal year.
As a result of the COVID-19 fourth wave, the government has extended the existing curfew measures for another 2 weeks. Prime Minister Andrew Holness explains at Tuesday's sitting of the House of Representatives.
As a result of the fourth wave, we have to hold the existing measures in place until we have more information on the number of positive cases that results in hospitalization and, in particular, require high-flow nasal oxygen. Madam Speaker, in light of these considerations, the Cabinet met yesterday and decided to extend the existing measures for an additional 2 weeks until January 27, 2022. This means that the curfew hours will remain at 10 p.m. nightly to 5 a.m. the following morning until 5 a.m. on January 28, 2022.
The uptick in infections continues with 1,714 new COVID-19 cases recorded on Monday.
You will see that our daily case count has now exceeded the previous peak in the third wave. Hospitalizations have also started to increase, but the rate of hospitalization as a proportion of persons infected is lower than in the third wave.
Mr. Holness again urged Jamaicans to get vaccinated and to practice safety measures like wearing masks and physical distancing.
We still have the Delta variant in circulation as well. The population must therefore continue to exercise a high degree of caution. Madam Speaker, the government had always anticipated this fourth wave and started to make preparations in terms of additional field hospitals and securing oxygen supply.
A COVID-19 vaccination policy is to be implemented for public sector workers. Prime Minister Andrew Holness signaled the move in Parliament on Tuesday.
We have indicated long ago that we will put in place measures for testing and for requiring vaccinations for public sector workers. Madam Speaker, the country must move on.
21% of the population has now been vaccinated, and 26% of that population has received at least 1 dose of the vaccine. A large number of the nation's children did not show up for face-to-face classes for the first week of the new term, which started on January 3. Education Minister Favour Williams updated the House of Representatives.
The data gathered for the period January 3 to 7, which was the first week of school, showed that 60% of students in the public school system reported to school via one or more of the learning modalities available. They were involved in orientation activities, psychosocial and empowerment sessions, assessment, and other learning activities on a rotational basis. The data we have collected as of today suggests that roughly 40% of students did not access any of the learning modalities available for the first week of school. We are expecting to see this number decline significantly as more of our students return to the face-to-face in the weeks ahead.
The minister reported that 954 schools have been deemed COVID compliant.
Meaning there has been a physical re-inspection of our schools for COVID as well as non-COVID issues. A COVID-compliant school has wash stations or sinks where the children have easy access to wash their hands, distance markers to make the students aware of how far apart to stand or sit from each other, an isolation room with its own bathroom facilities in the event a child shows up with runny nose, coughing, or with a fever. That child can be isolated until medical help arrives.
Mrs. Williams says her team will be utilizing the Yard-to-Yard Find the Child initiative to reconnect students to schools. She says the ministry continues to use various measures to increase take-up of the coronavirus vaccine among students, including staging blitzes at school.
We seek the help of all Jamaicans, but in particular the parents and guardians, to help to keep our children safe. We're pleading with parents who have children in our primary schools for whom there is no vaccine at this time in Jamaica for them. Please seek to get yourselves vaccinated so that you can provide protection for yourself and for your children. To the parents of high school students, we ask that you have a conversation with your children. Encourage them to take the vaccines. And I give the same encouragement to all our principals, our teachers, our staff, and all who work in the school environment and have to interact with our children. Help us to protect them so that they have the opportunity to recover the learning they have lost.
Jamaica's largest hotel, Bahia Principe, has announced the appointment of Brian Sang as its first Jamaican country manager. The news was welcomed by Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett, who noted that the announcement is in keeping with his ministry's goal of having more Jamaicans in leadership roles within the sector. The minister made the remarks on Tuesday during a meeting at his New Kingston offices with the executives from the hotel. To get the latest financial market updates, we now join Gabriel Thompson at the business desk for this quick report.
In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, January 11, the US dollar sold for an average $155.13. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $123.03. The pound sterling traded for $211.55, and the euro sold for an average $178.17. In Monday's trading session, the following reflect the movement of the JSE indices. The JSE index declined by over 2,000 points to close at over 3,000 units. The junior market index declined by 16 points to close at over 3,000 units. The JSE combined market index declined by 2,573 points to close at over 400,000 units. The JSE All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 1,680 points to close at over 400,000 units. The JSE Financial Index declined by 0.66 points to close at over 97 units. The JSE Manufacturing and Distribution Index declined by 0.51 points to close at over 101 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 95 stocks, of which 36 advanced, 47 declined, and 12 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 1834 Investments Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Stocks declined for Caribbean Cement Company Limited, Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share, and Elite Diagnostic Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, Cargo Handlers Limited, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited. Jamaican Teas Limited was the volume leader with over 1.2 million units, followed by Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 1.1 million units, and the Sagicor Select Funds Limited Manufacturing and Distribution with under 900,000 units. In market data for oil prices steadied on Wednesday following steep gains in the previous session after the U.S. Federal Reserve Chief signaled the central bank may raise rates more slowly than expected, which should help support oil demand. Brent and U.S. crude oil are trading at their highest levels since the highly contagious COVID-19 Omicron variant emerged in late November, as it has not hit fuel demand the way previous variants did. Brent crude futures were up 6 cents or 0.07% at $83.78 a barrel after jumping 3.5% in the previous session. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 20 cents or 0.3% to $81.42 a barrel, adding to a 3.8% jump in the previous session. If you've ever wondered how to open a savings account locally, today's edition of the Bank of Jamaica BOJ Empowering You video series is for you. Call your local financial institution to get all the details.
So it looks like this is the best bank for you to open a savings account with.
I don't know if I'm ready to take on the hassle for opening a savings account, Joy.
It shouldn't be a problem.
The last time I go for open a savings account, the amount of questions them asked me, it was as if I needed a recommendation from Papa God himself. I can't bother with that foolishness.
Things different now. These are modern times.
Okay then.
I tell you already, it's a digital world we're living in. Is online banking the world doing now? You can even call customer service first and they will tell you exactly what you have to do to open a bank account. Remember though, you still have to confirm your identity. So you need to show some form of identification. Don't worry. The bank will tell you what you need to do.
I hope you're not just saying that,
You think the love of your life would lead you astray?
Life funny. Science was my worst subject in school. And now, I'm married to a science teacher.
Stick to the subject. You don't have to be afraid to open a savings account. The bank will guide you through the KYC process and tell you what you need.
For the business report inside the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
We're now in the peak of the cold and flu season, which began in December and February. This is a time where there will be more cases of influenza, cold, or even seasonal allergies. In today's Living Healthy, Dr. Heather Lawson-Myers talks to an otolaryngologist, Dr. Francis Bartlett, find out possible causes for common issues such as nasal stuffness and allergies, sinusitis, and more.
We're in the beautiful hills of St. Andrew. Can you see the fabulous view behind me? I'm speaking with our guest, Dr. Francis Bartlett. He's an otolaryngologist. Big word.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Glad to see you. Can you tell me what that word means, otolaryngologist?
Otolaryngologist is a fancy term for ENT surgeon. And we are primarily a surgical field. And yes, everybody knows the ear, nose, throat surgeon, but classically we were head and neck surgeons and still are. We do a lot of things outside of the ear and the nose and the throat. So we deal also with a lot of neck disease, so goiters, parathyroid disease, head and neck cancers, which is a big part of what we deal with. But otolaryngologist is just a fancy term, really, and it truly belittles everything that we do.
Well, I learned something today. Well, I'm not going to focus so much on the ears, but noses. So many people have issues with noses. I work in the mouth, but I look up noses all day long. Tell me some of the challenges, some of the common problems why we are not able to breathe properly through our noses.
Oh, stuffy nose is a very common symptom and a miserable symptom also. And one of the commonest causes of having a stuffy nose is allergies, allergic rhinitis, which is allergies affecting the nose. And these allergies set up inflammation. And so the inflammation leads to swelling of the lining of the nose. And so it narrows the airspace within the nose. So there is not enough space to breathe through. Something else that is common is sinusitis. And this is very, very common. The sinuses are air-filled spaces within the bones of the face, and they open into the nasal cavity. And the sinuses the lining of the sinuses produce mucus. And this, when the sinuses become infected or inflamed, pus and so on can form within the sinuses, and this can drain into the nasal cavity and leading to inflammation in the nose again. And so this inflammation in the nose is what sets up a lot of this stuffiness, the drainage to the back of the throat, pain over the face, you know. And these are symptoms that commonly go with the stuffy nose. In kids, something that is common for a stuffy nose is adenoids. And these adenoids are swellings that are behind the nose. And we really can't see them by looking through the nose or in the back of the throat. But sometimes these symptoms that I just mentioned, the stuffiness, the runny nose, etc., can imply that this is there. So these would be probably the three most common causes of stuffiness that we have,
Okay, what about the person who maybe was playing football at 11, got hit in the nose, it was swollen, seemed to have resolved itself, but possibly a fracture that wasn't healed. Would that be a challenge?
Yes, that definitely is. The nose is separated by a septum, something that divides it into two halves. And sometimes this septum or column it fractured when you were playing sports, or it can even fracture while coming through the birth canal. And so it's pushed over to one side and so narrows the nasal cavity on one side. And so this can cause stuffiness, right? But it's not as common in our population. Black people have a bigger nose than the white person, and in Caucasians it tends to cause a bigger problem than it does in our population. But it is possible.
That is so good to know. So, I always hear the word adenoids, but I link it to tonsils and adenoids. So it's possible that the adenoids are problematic, but not the tonsils.
Interesting that you said that the tonsils and adenoids are the same type of tissue. They are lymphoid tissue. And so often we do expect that if one is big, the other is big, but it's not always the case. It's not always the case.
In regional news, we begin in the Bahamas. 3 days after the Davis administration rolled out free COVID-19 testing in New Providence, hundreds of people lined up outside the two testing sites to find out their COVID status. Some people left feeling frustrated, while others applauded the government's initiative. Bethany McDermott has more details in this report.
There were long lines and sometimes long waits at newly opened rapid antigen testing centers on New Providence today as the government expanded access to free COVID testing. Here at Malaya, some people left frustrated after waiting a long line to get tested.
They said we were supposed to start at 9 and it took a whole hour for them to set up, and then it was really confusing as to where it went, but once they got everything sorted out, in and done.
It was smooth up until it started. Earlier we had to wait and it was like nobody knew what was happening.
How long did you wait?
I was here from like 8:20.
Well, it wasn't good. I was here from 8:50 and nobody was here. And they set up around 9:30 and my appointment's for 9 o'clock.
With the country recording 3,000 more cases in 1 week and over 800 cases in 1 day, Prime Minister Philip Davis announced on Sunday that the government will make 1,000 free tests available each day. This morning, the line of cars stretched far beyond this drive-through testing center on West Bay Street. Residents had mixed views on the process.
No, apparently no one knew where it was supposed to be exactly.
Did they say anything as to why it took so long?
Oh no, definitely not.
Now, while this was the sentiment shared by those who showed up to the Malaya Resort looking to get a free COVID-19 test this morning, those who went to the Kendall G. Isaacs Gymnasium shared a different view. They said the process was without hiccups.
Fairly easy, in and out, takes less than 5 minutes. They check you in, you sanitize, they call you when you're available, swap you, and that's it.
Smooth, really smooth.
Free testing was a promise made by the Progressive Liberal Party on the campaign trail. Over at Kendall G. Isaacs Gym, people walked in to get tested for COVID-19 and also received free KN95 masks.
Wonderful, because some people only just make $50 a day, and if they charge them $40 for a test, this was excellent.
Well, it's good because most of these jobs now they require you to pay for the testing yourself. So it's better they, doing it for free. Sure. People could come in and get it for free.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Monday's COVID-19 dashboard has seen Grenada's active coronavirus cases jump to 2,286, with 501 recorded as new cases. With continuing discussions on returning to face-to-face teaching and learning for students, statistics are beginning to show the impact of the virus on children. More from GBN News.
11.5% of children accounts for the number of positive COVID-19 cases on the island. Senior Medical Officer Mayana Charles, in providing Grenada's present COVID-19 statistics, says since testing began on the island, the largest number of tests being conducted was recorded on Monday. The present number of active cases on the island is 2,286. Dr. Charles provided a breakdown in terms of age and gender.
As it relates to gender, 55% are females and 45% are males. And an age breakdown. Now, 11.5% are under the age of 18. 15% are between the ages of 18 to 24. 62.5% are between the ages of 25 to 49. 8.6% between the ages of 50 to 69, and 2.4% 70 and above. Yesterday alone, we conducted 1,836 COVID-19 tests. That is the most tests we have ever done in a day since the start of the pandemic.
The senior medical officer noted that one individual visiting the hospital for other medical purposes tested positive for COVID-19.
Also important to note, there is an additional person admitted to hospital for other reasons and incidentally tested positive for COVID-19. Now, in the face of an outbreak, this is something we expect, and this is something that we may see going forward. Persons coming in for other reasons and coincidentally testing positive for COVID-19, but is not hospitalized as a result of COVID-19.
6 persons are presently hospitalized with 41 new recoveries, with the cumulative recoveries at 5,785.
The age range of the hospitalized cases are between 32 and 76. To note, 5 of the 6 persons hospitalized are not vaccinated, and that 5 persons are suffering from COVID pneumonia.
Dr. Charles noted that 32% of Grenada's population is fully vaccinated, while 5% is partially vaccinated. Chrislina John, GBN News.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the National Trade Union Center wants governments to implement a vaccine injury compensation fund to provide relief to citizens who may experience adverse effects after getting inoculated. This is just one of their demands, as they claim that several people have been negatively affected by taking the COVID-19 jab. Sunil Lala has that story.
The National Trade Union Center says it will send several proposals to government on its own vaccine policy and remains adamant that workers should not be made to get vaccinated to go out to work from next Monday. General Secretary Michael Anisette says the suggestions will soon be sent to the Prime Minister and Attorney General, and he wants a fund set up for anyone who may experience adverse effects after getting vaccinated.
We must establish, let me repeat it, a vaccine injury compensation fund to provide relief to any and all citizens who may experience loss of life, limb or livelihood as a consequence of the COVID-19 inoculation.
Mr. Anisette believes a protocol for adverse reporting must be implemented for absolute transparency.
Establish a stringent protocol for the reporting of adverse events and injuries, supported by a functional vaccine adverse event reporting system, which is publicly accessible and viewable online.
Natuc also wants government to ensure a person does not have to disclose their vaccine status, even to employers.
The medical information should not be disclosed, we are saying that, to employers or to any other member of the public, because this serves, in our humble view, no other purpose than to facilitate coercion, victimization, and the loss of your job.
Mr. Anisette adds that safe zones should also be abolished, saying it gives a false sense of security since people can still get infected. Natuc President James Lambert says the union stand firm that vaccination remain a choice and continues to urge all public servants to exercise their right next Monday.
Go to work on the 17th.
Sonolala, TTT News.
In sports, we open up the innings with cricket. We continue to look at preparations for the ICC 50 Over World Cup slated for January and February. We return to Guyana to look at another hosting venue, which is the Demerara Cricket Club, or DCC. In the recent week, DCC has undergone significant rehabilitation works for the Under-19 World Cup. DCC is scheduled to host solely practice sessions from Friday morning, and according to venue manager Mark Harper, the venue is ready for the undertaking. The details in this report from Newsroom Guyana.
The National Stadium here at Providence will host 2 matches in the upcoming ICC Men's Under-19 Cricket World Cup. Ever since Guyana was announced as a host nation of this World Cup, preparations had begun to get this venue in a state of readiness for those matches. A week away from the tournament, the Cricket West Indies regional curator, Kent Crafton, has had great things to say about the pitch and outfield.
Yes, I must say it's a very pleasing time now to see finally we get to a point of cricket. Preparation has been a bit difficult, especially because of the weather conditions we have had. But we have come a long, long way. I'm saying today, after visiting the venues, I'm quite happy I'm pleased that we are getting there. And for sure, we will be ready for our first sessions on Friday. For sure, here at Providence, a ground that we have never had too many issues with. And some improvement work have been done since our international games. Some maintenance operations which will improve the surface drainage. So again, we're ready at Providence.
The National Stadium is the only of the 6 local venues to host all 3 aspects of the tournament. Those are practice sessions, warm-up games and matches in the World Cup proper. The opening game of the tournament between host nation West Indies and Australia will take place at Providence on November 14th, while the following day the venue will host India and South Africa. The National Stadium here at Providence is the only venue to host matches in all 4 of the ICC Cricket World Cup events to be hosted in the Caribbean. Reporting for Newsroom from Providence, I'm Avinash Ramzan.
And that's our package. You've just watched the news on PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.